I'm really happy that Elise was able to join us tonight. I saw her do this talk in my hometown over Christmas, and it was really impactful for me. Really just centered the Palestinian experience again for me because I find we're often talking about the geopolitics of it, or the Canadian role, but this just really hit home for me, and yeah, it was very important. So I wanted to bring that here. So Elise is an emergency physician and also an organizer in St. John's, Newfoundland. She grounds her practice in anti-imperialist Marxist politics and operates within a framework of solidarity. She co-founded Palestine Action YYT and continues to expand its work through the Apartheid Free Communities campaign. Yeah, so definitely we're very lucky to have Elise with us. And she's also expressed her interest in our group as well, which is really awesome. So yeah, Elise,
Yay.
I can hand it over to you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, really excited to be here. And excited about these projects that are kind of happening that are socialist in orientation and working to build broadly across the country. Back when I lived in Toronto, I was part of the Greater Toronto Workers' Assembly, which was sort of a localized, similar project of bringing together people from various tendencies, and I'm excited to see that happening on a bigger scale. I'm just going to share my screen. We tried this already, so it should work. Okay. And I'm going to do this as a slideshow. So um, I timed it out to be about 30 minutes. I'm going to try to stick to that so that there's time for questions and everything. All right. So I'm Elise. I'm an emergency physician based here in Newfoundland and Labrador, but I also work in Iqaluit in Nunavut and in Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. And I spent the fall of 2025 in Gaza. While this talk is primarily about a genocide taking place on another continent, my understanding of and ability to identify this genocide for what it is and my need to resist it come from living and growing up on lands where genocide happened and continues to happen in myriad ways. In going from Newfoundland, Nunavut, Northwest Territories to Gaza, I traveled from the long tail of genocide into its gaping maw, and I saw the same systems, same violences, same outcomes in different locations. The reasons why Canada as a country has failed to act to stop this genocide in Gaza are because its own existence resides in the same process. In many ways, the Canadian system of settler colonialism was a blueprint for the foundation and continued existence of Israel, and there exists a sick solidarity between genocidal states. This is to say that I too reside on a land founded in genocide, but this does not write my future. It does not write our futures. Instead, it reminds us of what we are called to do, that we must recognize and resist genocide and struggle for our collective liberation from where we are and in the ways we can. So I want us to take the lessons from tonight. The lessons from tonight I want to be what genocide looks like, but also what solidarity, resistance, and samud look like, so that we can deepen our connections to each other, understand the liberation struggle in Palestine, and ground our work for liberation here in those shared horizons. For this reason, I want to dedicate tonight's talk to all those engaged in resisting empire's violences in Bolivia, in Iran, in Cuba, in Lebanon, and especially in Gaza. They remind us that not all is lost, and that through resistance we can build a future worth living in. I also want to dedicate this talk to Alex Jeffrey Pretty, the 37-year-old healthcare worker murdered by ICE agents in Minneapolis in January. His death reminds us that community and standing up for our neighbors, be they physically beside us or just neighbors of the spirit, is the duty of all of us, and that this work is increasingly dangerous, and that we must take care of each other, take risks with each other, and demand more of ourselves to defend the beautiful world we've been gifted. Uh, my friend Allah calls it the badness. We used to live all together in Beit Lahia with a garden, she told me, and then the badness came. By now, we all know the badness, the relentless bombings, the destroyed homes, hospitals, mosques, libraries, universities, the quadcopter drones and 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs, the humanitarian food distribution sites that become death zones, the decimation of infrastructure, the starvation and blockade of food and medical aid. Despite the supposed ceasefire, the badness carries on. Tonight, I'm going to share some stories from the badness, stories from my time working in emergency departments in Gaza City, primarily El Ali Hospital and Al Shifa Hospital in Gaza City. Through pictures and personal connections, I want to make real many of the facts you likely already know and connect these very visceral vignettes together to show how they make up the fabric of what has been defined as a genocide. A genocide that continues at pace even after the signed ceasefire of 10th October 2025, 2 years and 3 days after it began in earnest. And I also want to reiterate, of course, and remind everyone, which you probably already know, that the badness did not begin on October 7th. The badness goes back to 2007 when the siege and blockade on Gaza began. It goes back to 2001 when the occupation forced the closure of the Gaza International Airport. It goes back to 1967 when the occupation seized Gaza and laid claim to it, and to the 1948 Nakba when Palestinians were ethnically cleansed by Israel and 750,000 were displaced. Tonight we will talk about the badness in the present, always with the knowledge that the conditions for the badness I witnessed in person and that we are witnessing every day on our phones and on our screens was laid long, long ago, over 100 years ago, and is the context for everything I talk about tonight. Just a brief pause to say that this is footage of the drive down Salah al-Din Road, which is the north-south route on the eastern edge of Gaza, which is still on our side of the yellow line currently. And the drive that we took to get from Gaza City to Deir al-Balah takes about 45 minutes. This is just 5 minutes of the footage, but it basically all looks like this. This was like, the most densely populated area of the world a few years ago. All of the mattresses at the newly opened Al Shifa Hospital emergency room are wrapped in body bags. The thick white plastic is a perfect barrier, easy to clean of blood and body fluid with a spray of water or the wipe of a cloth. Not that either of those are easy to find. The mattresses at El Ali Hospital only exist when they are lugged in by the fathers or aunts or brothers or wives of patients, straight from their shelters. Otherwise, the patients are left laying on a bed of only crisscrossed metal, often poking into their flanks and snagging their chest tubes. Their IV fluids are tied to the rafters of the tent by knotting up used latex gloves when we have them, a piece of gauze when we don't, held aloft by the arms of family members when we have neither. I pull the glove straight off my hand after placing an IV and repurpose it to tie up the bag of IV fluids or the bag of blood. We were told explicitly we could bring no medical supplies with us. In our UN briefing the day before we entered Gaza, we were informed that we could only bring personal use items: a phone, a computer, some food, maximum 3 kilograms, personal medications, 1,000 shekels in cash only. We were told you cannot carry anything in with you that is not permitted by the occupation. If you bring any medical equipment with you, you risk being denied entry to Gaza. That includes thermometers, pulse oximeters, and stethoscopes. I was so stunned when I heard this that I unmuted myself on the call and asked for clarification. I cannot bring a stethoscope, the most basic item of medical investigation. But yes, our UN representative said, you heard that right. No stethoscope. No gifts, no gold, no life-saving medications. Your clothes, your phone and charger, your computer and charger, 3 kilograms of food, 1,000 shekels. This is what the occupation decrees you can enter Gaza with. And I should say this is what the UN helps enforce, what you can enter Gaza with. The emergency department at Ali Hospital was destroyed in a bombing in April of 2025, and since then it has been a tent. The courtyard of the hospital was bombed long before that, on 17th October 2023, when 471 people were killed and a giant crater opened up in the area between the playground and the reception building. The crater has been repaired and the paving stones replaced, although you can still tell where the bomb landed because the new paving stones are red. The bodies were piled so high that we couldn't leave the hospital even if we wanted to, my friend Huda told me. On my first night at Ali Hospital, a mass casualty event occurred. A small one. Only a dozen or so people arrived at once, only half of those alive. A young man was carried into the emergency department in his father's arms, his body limp. Blood trailed across the stone floor. It suddenly became too crowded for me or the nurses to reach any of the 5 or 6 pieces of gauze available at the nursing station. I used the cut-up sleeve of that same boy's t-shirt to plug the hole in his leg from the quadcopter bullet. He is 16. He has the tiny stubble of an adolescent across his upper lip. I remember this because I am so close to his face as I intubate him. There are no more gloves in my pocket and none at the desk, but I have gotten over myself enough to scoop the vomit from his unconscious mouth and reroute the blood pouring from his leg with scraps of his red t-shirt and my bare hands. We intubate him lit only by the flashlight of an iPhone because the batteries in the laryngoscope died long ago. He dies too in front of us. His heart stops, but we push on his chest until we get the beat back and we race him to the operating room, carrying his metal bed with our own hands. In Gaza during the genocide, but before the summer's manufactured starvation, about 30% of patients died postoperatively. That means of everyone who went to surgery in Gaza during the genocide, 3 in 10 would die. 30% of patients dying during their surgery is a catastrophe. It's an astronomical number. In Canada, for patients with traumatic injuries, gunshot wounds, stab wounds, car accidents, of those who go to surgery, we maybe have a 2 to 5% post-op death rate. In Gaza, of those who made it to the OR, 30% died afterwards, and during the starvation, that number went up to 50, 60, 70%. And when they didn't die, their wounds didn't heal. The reasons for this are complex, and of course they're not. The reasons are the genocide. But the reasons can be considered complex. An article called Excess Deaths, published in The Lancet in 2024, details some of these contributing causes to post-op deaths. Malnutrition, of course, this was before the starvation of 2025. Wound dehiscence, where the surgical sites fall apart. Infection, either systemic or local, because of the total inadequacy and unavailability of antibiotics. A lack of adequate medication, of course, antibiotics, but also a lack of proper fluids, no electrolytes for electrolyte replacement, and in fact, no reagent to even test if a patient's electrolytes are low or high or off. A lack of medical supplies, sometimes stoma bags, if you had to do like a bowel surgery, were made from latex gloves or plastic shopping bags. Tissue paper, sometimes used for wound dressings, and Tylenol is the sole form of analgesia. But anyway, here we are, the team who rushed our patient from the emergency room floor, bleeding and intubated, and bagged him in the OR until the surgeon could sew together the lacerated femoral artery in his left leg and remove the pieces of dirt and shrapnel embedded in his malnourished muscles. We're so happy here. We did great, team. Good news to deliver to his family waiting desperately just outside those OR doors. They crowd around me when I walk through them because they wrongly assume as a foreign doctor I am smarter than the local doctors. I am not. I am far less skilled. Their eyes ask and I answer he is stable because that is truly all I know and all I can say, and that brings relief both to his family and to me. But in the morning, when I stop into the ICU to check on him, my friend Nasser tells me that he died overnight. I'm not totally sure why. There was no graft or stent or patch to repair his torn artery, so the surgeon had carefully sewed with tiny needles and the thinnest thread the two ends of his artery together. Maybe the sutures failed and he bled to death. Maybe he didn't get enough fluid or blood products because there simply was not enough. Maybe his organs, which had not received adequate blood or oxygen when his heart stopped, had simply failed. It's impossible to know why because there simply are not available the tests or the tools to determine why and how, specifically, he'd died, except to say that he was a child who had been shot in the leg by a quadcopter piloted by someone likely not much older than him, who was probably sitting in a room somewhere in Tel Aviv. All I know is he died in the genocide, and in any other place he would have survived. The funerary shooting and the wailing in the courtyard did not even stir the pigeons on my window. They are so used to the loud noises. Just a pause to say that this here is a view from the roof of the surgical building of Ali Hospital grounds. The tent is the emergency department. And if you see to the left of the tents, there's a little, what used to be a playground, and that kind of the paving stones, and then the other piece of what used to be grass. That's where the crater was and where the bomb landed in 2023. So all of those paving stones have been replaced. You can't tell in the picture, but when you're there, they're red instead of the gray. Brief aside for some numbers, as of June 1, 2026, since the ceasefire on 11th October 2025, total killed 932, total injured 2,859, total previously killed bodies recovered 781. This brings the recorded death toll from the Israeli genocide in Gaza to 71,657. Oh, sorry, 72,941 and 172,000. Oops, sorry. 172,960, sorry. Two, I think, likely 3 to 5 times higher, of course. At Ali, the hospital, the supplies are so few that when available, they are hoarded in the cabinets of the nursing station, out of view and out of reach. What we have changes each day. Some days no IV fluids, some days no gauze, some days no gloves. Always no analgesia, mostly one antibiotic, not in IV form, so we crush up amoxicillin and hope that helps treat the septic patient before us. There is no running water in the emergency department tent, and every day a nurse spikes a bag of lactated ringers that we take turns using to dissolve the dried blood from our fingers and elbows. I don't bother to dig the dark flecks out from under my nails until the end of every day. There is not one fully functioning hospital in Gaza. Some are open, yes, but none of them would be considered functioning, even partially, by any international standard. Hospitals still face critical shortages of medication and equipment because the Israeli occupation continues to violate the ceasefire and refuses to let in the agreed upon amount of aid, and this results in further deaths, and these deaths don't get counted amongst the official death toll. So, a few more numbers and facts. There's one CT scanner in the north of Gaza where the vast majority of the population lives. Less than 5% of the aid arriving to Gaza is medical supplies, despite the immense need faced by the hospitals that are still functioning. There's been no real increase in medical aid since the ceasefire, said the director of Shifa Hospital's Medical Aid for Palestinians component. Israel is allowing in just 5 trucks carrying medical aid into Gaza per week, 3 trucks that go to international NGOs and the UN, and 2 trucks that go to the Ministry of Health run hospitals, which are the majority of hospitals operating in the Gaza Strip for now. That's something we can talk about in the Q&A for sure, about the NGO incursion into the hospital structure and infrastructure in Gaza. Um, the Ministry of Health reported in December of 2025 that essential medicine shortages exceeded 56% and medical supply shortages exceed 65%. That hasn't improved since December. Access for medical teams and supplies is a major obstacle. Between 45 to 70% of physicians or doctors attempting to enter Gaza are denied entry for no known reason. And key items like ICU equipment, anesthesia machines, pathology supplies, and cold chain supplies continue to be held back. In January of 2026, Israel banned dozens of aid groups from Gaza, including Doctors Without Borders. Can also discuss that more later. Only 10 out of the 36 hospitals in Gaza maintain partial operational status, meaning there are about 1,400 beds in the Gaza Strip, which is woefully inadequate for addressing the healthcare needs of a population of 2 million people, especially while there's a genocide. And the systemic targeting of healthcare facilities has been well documented, with the WHO verifying 800 attacks on healthcare infrastructure in Gaza since October 2023, leading to more than 1,400 healthcare workers being killed and over 300 kidnapped and currently incarcerated in Israeli prisons with no known charges, including most famously Dr. Hassam Abu Safia, pediatrician and neonatologist at Kamal Adwan Hospital, who has been held without charge since December 27, 2024. So a lot of it is the direct, bombing, shooting, artillery strikes, etc. But there's also the slow violence and the slow genocide. Um, Sorry, just making sure. Mahmoud Harib has the biggest smile. He is always laughing. Every day he comes up to me to tell me he has a secret he wants to share with me. He whispers and giggles, "I have to tell you. Later, I will tell you my secret." It is not until the end of my visit that he finally shares it with me. We're in the wound care department changing people's dressings. He takes out his phone and shows me pictures of a beautiful girl, and then more of her in a hospital bed, and then there is her funeral. She was his secret girlfriend. No one knew they loved each other, that they talked every night on the phone, that they had a years-long Snapchat streak. They were each other's secret. And then she got a stomach bug, and then her legs got weaker, and then she couldn't breathe, and then she died. So much of Gaza has been destroyed. Rafah isn't even rubble, it's just overturned dirt and rebar spiking upwards at awkward angles. Gaza City is unrecognizable to its own inhabitants. People get lost making journeys across town. Neighborhoods are completely decimated. Buildings resemble stacks of pancakes. Of the population of 2 million people, 1.9 million are displaced from their homes and 1.5 million are living in tents. There's no running water in these tent cities, no sewage, no electricity. At night, Gaza becomes so dark you can see the Milky Way spill across the sky. In July of 2025, the UN Office for the High Commission for Human Rights said that Israel is using thirst as a weapon to kill Palestinians. Since October of 2023, Israel's military operations have repeatedly targeted water facilities, wells, pipelines, desalination units, and sewage systems. 89% of Gaza's water and sanitation infrastructure has been damaged or destroyed. The sewage pumps and wastewater treatment plants flattened. Israel has restricted the entry of water testing equipment by international NGOs like Oxfam. 97% of water in Gaza is undrinkable due to contamination and high salinity. In the small two-room apartment I share with 11 other girls, we have running water, but it tastes like a diet version of the sea, salty and completely undrinkable. Each day, one of us takes our 5-gallon water jug and goes out looking for fresh water somewhere on the hospital grounds. All Gazans do the same, mostly children, wandering the street for hours, carrying water jugs almost the size of themselves, looking for water. It is easier for us to find. We are at the hospital, and the water truck comes daily to refill the cisterns so that there is fresh, treated, potable water for surgeries, for cleaning, for cooking and drinking. The cisterns are always emptied already by midday. Because of the destroyed infrastructure and the inability to treat water, people are left thirsty and must drink what water they can. Infectious disease outbreaks are rampant, with cholera, dysentery, gastrointestinal viruses unable to be detected in the water due to inadequate surveillance mechanisms and a lack of water treatment options. Poliovirus has been found in some of the sewage samples that have been able to be collected and surveilled. Everyone has gastroenteritis. Everyone is sick in their turn. The doctors and nurses give themselves a little IV drip of Maxaran to ease their nausea so they can continue to work. Patients line up with complaints of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. This is how it began for Mahmoud Harib's secret girlfriend. First her stomach hurt, then her legs got weak. There is an outbreak of Guillain-Barré syndrome in Gaza. Guillain-Barré is a post-viral immune system disease that causes an ascending paralysis. It starts with tingling and weakness in the feet and legs, and it moves itself up the body, and the myelin sheath that surrounds all of your nerves slowly unravels. It is your immune system going into overdrive and attacking itself after it has attacked a viral infection, often Campylobacter jejuni, a stomach virus. It is a slow death if untreated. It crawls up your body, shutting everything down: legs, arms, lungs, heart. It is treated with IVIG, which of course is not available in Gaza, or with plasmapheresis, which is of course available only in the most limited of ways. Over the summer, there were 85 cases of GBS across Gaza and 8 deaths, and those numbers continued to rise. Every day in the emergency department, a patient arrived with weakness in their legs following a bout of watery diarrhea. No testing available, so the treatment is just to wait and see how bad it gets until you need to be moved to another hospital further south where maybe they might be able to access some medical intervention. Mahmoud Harib watched his girlfriend through a screen. He could not go visit her because their love was secret. He watched her slowly be unable to move, then to breathe, and then one day his text messages went unanswered. He showed me the last messages he sent on his phone. "Hello," they read. "My love, are you there?" "I am so sad I want to die," Mahmoud Harib said to me with a huge grin. Like so many people I met, he was able to hide his grief as much as he had hidden his love. But under his bouncing, gleeful facade, obviously a deeper pain. The average Gazan now has access to about 6 liters of water per day for all their needs, including drinking, cooking, cleaning, and personal hygiene. The average North American uses 6 liters of water to flush their toilet. Scabies is rampant in Gaza. Scabies is a highly contagious infection caused by microscopic mites, Sarcoptes scabiei, which burrow under the skin and cause intense itching. In most cases, the infection is limited to a small area, between the fingers, for instance, or in the skin folds of the groin or armpit. With no ability to clean oneself, to do laundry, or sanitize bedding, scabies infections become systemic. Scabies live on or in the skin, but they also live in bedding and clothes, so once an infection has been identified in a patient, they must be treated, and so must any and all members of the household. Is anyone in your household experiencing the same symptoms? We ask every patient with an itching, angry rash. We have ivermectin somehow, but that is good for one treatment only. It cannot treat reinfection, and everyone just gets infected again and again. We give them permethrin cream to apply to their skin, and that kills the bugs. But then you lie down on your infested mattress, sleep under your infested blanket, put on your infested pants. The bugs return and burrow. The solution is to throw out all the bedding and clothes, or, barring that, to wash the bedding and clothes several times in boiling hot water and then dry it in hot air. With 6 liters a day of water to drink, cook, and clean, this is impossible. People are infected over and over and over, treated and reinfected, treated and reinfected. Scabies move around at night. The itching is more intense as the sun sets and the moon rises. You itch, you scratch, you bleed. The bombing intensifies at night, too. Is it your neighbor's tent being targeted? Is that itch and sign of an infestation? Did that missile target a car carrying a resistance leader? Can you scratch every part of your body at once? Was that boom the sound of buildings on the other side of the yellow line, maybe your home being demolished? Will the bleeding from the excoriations on my legs leave blood stains on your only set of sheets? The night is a time of terror from outside, and also from just underneath the skin. This is the biosphere of genocide. It is not one thing, it is everything. The biological, the physical, the social, all combining to create a total system of reshaping human health in a way that actively takes or diminishes life. 340 miles of sewage pipes intentionally destroyed in the first weeks of the war, destruction of every water treatment plant, the destruction of homes and the forced displacement of people into shelters, schools, tents, the loss of one's personal connection to community, to neighbors, to family history, the arrival of epidemics which are fundamental to every genocide since the invention of genocide. The manufactured famine, which kills people directly and causes malnutrition, which makes it harder to recover, so you die from lesser wounds or otherwise non-fatal infections. The mutation and creation of multi-drug resistant bacteria so that infections no longer respond to any antibiotic, let alone the minimal few you have available. The destruction of every radio station in Gaza so that information cannot be easily and rapidly shared across free networks for everyone, including those who do not have access to a smartphone. The bulldozing of cemeteries, cutting people off from their past and their ability to engage in the very foundational human act of grieving. The eradication of families, leaving 58,000 orphans to fend for themselves and care for their younger siblings and cousins. The bombed hospitals, the murdered abducted healthcare workers, and of course, the drones. And then a ceasefire, and you can sit back and watch the slow genocide unfold far away from the media's gaze, out of the minds of most of the world's leaders. Make your board of peace, present the world with a new and invigorated colonialism, call it a Nobel Prize-worthy victory. Not one Western leader will raise an eyebrow. But, and there is always a but. Allah, a different Allah, is 22. She is a medical student and she is my roommate. I wake up after midnight when the bombings intensify and find her sitting at the dining table in our room studying. Sometimes I find her crying because she has a dental infection and the antibiotics aren't working and her mouth hurts so badly. When she senses any tension after a loud blast, she says, "Don't worry, that was just a demolition," or "That bomb is so far away." By far away, she means a few hundred meters. Sometimes our windows pulse open with the blast wave. Sometimes small stones and shrapnel reach the walls of our building. One day there is a boom that goes on and on like chandeliers falling into more chandeliers, blossoming into sounds that resemble broken crystals. "I've never heard that one before," she says. "I think they are experimenting on us here." Allah was accepted to medical schools in the US and in Germany. She was preparing herself to go when the genocide began. She declined her acceptances and her scholarships. "I would rather die together with my family on our own land than live alone outside of it," she tells me. Dr. Fadl says that in Gaza you must live for today. You never know what will come tomorrow, so you must make your plans today and live them. He tells me this when I ask him why the Abu al-Sud, the famous sweets bakery in Gaza, bothered to rebuild after being destroyed. Its shiny new tiles and bright lights seemed to tempt fate in the form of a missile. "Because we cannot wait for the day the occupation ends," he tells me, "for the day the bombing stops, for the day that we have peace. Perfection is an obstacle. In Palestine, we live for today. You want to make knafa for the people, rebuild your blown apart building today and make knafa for the people. Who knows what tomorrow brings?" The priests at the Holy Family Church were ordered to evacuate, but even if they'd wanted to leave, the 500 people living in the church compound could not, as the IOF bulldozers piled debris high against the church gates. That was in 2024. In 2025, they are ordered to evacuate again. But anyway, they refuse to leave. They always refuse to leave. "Many of my people, they are old and disabled. They cannot evacuate, and we cannot leave them." This is what Father Gabriel from Argentina, Father Yusuf from Egypt, and Father Anton, also from Argentina, decided. And so they stayed. "They took my home and my loved ones, but they won't take my right to remain here on my land, no matter how dark it gets," said Fuad, who'd been sheltering in the church for 2 years. Father Anton told me, "Instead of panic and chaos, a spirit of solidarity prevails amongst us, both Christian and Muslim. Every day we work vigilantly together to find food and water for the children and the elderly." So what is samud? What is solidarity? Samud is like an olive tree that lives 3,000 years despite everything, Dr. Fadl told me. It is an Arabic word meaning steadfastness, perseverance, resilience. It is a determination to remain on your land with your family and loved ones despite it all. It is the rebuilding of your sweets bakery despite the fact that it was bombed last week and it may be bombed tomorrow, but today you make knafe. It is preserving the culture of your people despite the fact that every university and every library and every mosque has been targeted, bombed, destroyed. It is maintaining your dignity and your love for one another despite not having clean clothing, not having shoes, not having a home, not having a bed, not having food, not having clean water. It is facing hard choices, making hard decisions, and then risking everything for what you believe is right. It is Muhammad William, the driver for the Indonesian team, coming down to the emergency department after every mass casualty to bring us tea with nana in it and persimmons, which are now in season, and bananas. It is Taima insisting we go have dinner on the beach despite the genocide because we have to have fun. It is Huda finishing her master's degree this summer and publishing her research on antimicrobial resistance in the genocide in the Lancet, and then opening a mini microbiology lab at Ali Hospital to continue her research. It is staying in Gaza despite the genocide taking all your family members, your children, and your grandchildren, and your husband. It is staying despite the evacuation orders. It is looking at the occupation down the barrel of their gun and saying, Gaza is my home. It is planting sunflowers on the graves of your colleagues buried in the hospital courtyard, hiding the bullet holes in the hospital walls. It is always taking care of each other in the biggest and smallest of ways. It is working here to resist this genocide, all genocides. It is putting our bodies on the line to say no. That's my that's my kiddo there. It is standing up to our own government, our own states, demanding they stop sending these weapons of genocide. It is refusing to turn away from the genocide when it ceases to be front page news. It is to face accusations and criticisms and risk losing your job and your livelihood to say you refuse genocide no matter who is committing it. And it is to be here tonight to say we want something more from our world, to say the future is not one of colonization, imperialism, war, or genocide. Solidarity and Samud is to say, I stand with you through all of this, to hold hands and face an unknown future, and to do this believing that together we will win and that Palestine will be free. Free Palestine. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Elise. Yeah, very, very, very impactful. I still remember like the scabies part especially really sticks with me about at night and the itching because those are just things that I don't think about at all. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. If anybody has any comments, any questions that they wanted to ask Elise, they can feel free to put up their hand. Yep, Yuri.
Well, Elise, I think definitely on behalf of everyone, thanks so much for your presentation. I can't imagine the kind of shell shockness that having to relive some of that brought you. So thanks for that. Uh, Two quick questions. Number one, do you know if one of your colleagues, Emily, I can't pronounce her last name, but she's blonde. She was an emergency responder. Got fired for speaking out against the genocide. Do you know? Yeah. Do you know what's happening with her in finding employment? And I guess my other question regarding historic Palestine is having been through it and seen all the horrors you have seen, do you just find yourself getting very angry when you see some of these douchebags at the National Post or Bill Maher, Piers Morgan, all these other wastes of space of oxygen and so forth, defending the indefensible, or even just the average Joe and Jane and non-binary who defends who defends Israel. I'm very
Um, To your first question, I don't know the Emily person, which is surprising. She's an emerge physician, and lost her job. I belong to a group of healthcare workers for Palestine, and we've done a lot of rapid response stuff for people who have lost their jobs because of Palestine. Maybe I just missed her. I know that several of the people, including kind of most famously Ben Thompson, who lost his job early on in the genocide, like in October, initially, um, has been engaged in a 2.5 year process of his suing his hospital and is frankly still not able to find sort of permanent work anywhere outside of there. And I have many friends who were vocal and active, and while they were residents, for example, and then have had a difficult time securing positions. So healthcare is extremely, extremely Zionist and a difficult place to be in many ways. I'm very lucky in that I work in places that are sort of off the off the map in some way. So here in Newfoundland, I've been extremely well supported by my department, and in Nunavut and in Northwest Territories as well. In terms of how I feel coming back, like I have been involved in Palestine solidarity work for 25 years. So the anger at people just like repeatedly misrepresenting what's happening, it has been a like ongoing thing. I think that, yeah, I basically wake up every day in this state of unbridled rage, and especially when I see douchebags like on the media saying, and our mainstream media sources and every single liberal media outlet who persistently uses terms like the Hamas run Ministry of Health, which obviously it's Hamas run. It's the government of Gaza. It's just like, well, we call it the liberal run Ministry of Health in Canada. Um, so yeah, I have a lot of rage. Um, Trying to channel it into productive avenues at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. John?
Thank you. And first, solidarity and thank you. Um, that was hard to watch. I can never mind living through, but I almost was tempted to go away, but I don't think you can look away and live with yourself. But just playing off what Yuri said, incandescent with rage, I think, is what any reasonable person looking at that becomes. And but how do you not become the other,
Mm, mm.
right?
Yeah.
Because the other side will say, well, we're enraged by insert objection here. The rage is can be cleansing and useful, but becoming the other
It can be
is
poison.
all is always a risk. And at the heart of our movement should be solidarity. But if we spend so much time hating as opposed to raging, I think that's poisonous to our movement as well. I'm just wondering if that resonates.
Very much. I totally agree. I actually think that's sort of part of the project of imperialism, Zionism, colonialism of this genocide, right? This is what a psyop is to poison your mind. And it's really important. Lara Sheehy, an incredible Fanonian psychoanalyst who has a brand new book out actually called From the Clinics to the Streets. She talks about this idea of psychic militancy. So maintaining our focus on the politics that we are and the goal that we're struggling towards, using the rage that is brought up in you in a productive way to like target and focus on achieving your political ends, and not letting them colonize your mind. And in a very real and material way, not this sort of like decolonize your mind woo shit, but like being very militant about how you focus your mind and your energies and your rage. So not letting yourself become them, not letting yourself be poisoned by what they're doing, remembering and always looking at what they're doing and how they're trying to build that rage in you as what is literally a psyop. Like that's the definition of it, right? To like do operations on your psyche. So maintaining that psychic militancy, which is really hard, but much easier to do when you have comrades, when you are in a movement, when you're engaged in struggle, when you're talking to people, when you have time to share with others, oh, I'm feeling this way, and then your comrades can reorient you. Those things are really helpful. And also, I would just put a plug in for her book, Lara Sheehy, and she's also got a podcast that's called Psychic Militancy, which I find really helpful for sort of political therapizing of the psyche. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Diane?
Uh, I just um I just wondered if like I've noticed I've been a nurse for 37 years and I I've just felt really disappointed in the lack of awareness of my colleagues. And I mean, I had contacted the president of our nursing union here during the hot cargo resolution when that was being debated at the CLC convention, and she just gave me a very bland um, response. Like there's no real effort to educate or to uh, build awareness or anything. And I mean, I know her personally because I was on the bargaining committee with her 30 years ago. But I wonder what your experience is with connecting to your colleagues across the country and building solidarity that way. And like your presentation is it's just horrific.
Um, I definitely feel like there are people that I've connected with across the country in within healthcare, which is really inspiring. In fact, early on in the genocide, it was kind of the only thing that kept me going at work was knowing that there were other physicians, nurses, physiotherapists, lab techs, etc., out there who cared, and who were doing something and who were forming a movement. I think, but I experience that all the time. People will say, that's really terrible what's happening over there, but they're not willing to take any risks because it does require taking risks. Even if the risk is just like you won't get that promotion, you know. People aren't willing to take risks. People find it very easy to tune out. We live in a land of like abominable peace, frankly. It shouldn't be because of the horrors we enact elsewhere. But it's easy to tune out, to turn yourself off, to like split yourself from the material reality. The material reality is here. A lot of people find it easy to just tune it out. And then I also think like we are raised and we live in deeply individualistic societies. We're very atomized. We're totally separated from each other. We don't understand what solidarity means. If the shit that happened in Palestine happened here, we would fall apart in a heartbeat. Like I'm sure working in a hospital, you uh, would remember. Like if something goes wrong, people just can't deal, you know? And whereas in Palestine, they deal. They work collectively and collaboratively. And so in terms of like, I have found a community across the country. It's spread out. I don't feel like there's a whole lot of militants at the hospital here, but there's more every day. You know, when I gave a talk here in Newfoundland, many medical residents and med students showed up. I did a talk at the medical school. Every day when I'm at work, I will have a medical resident come up to me and say, I'm really inspired by what you did. You know, so I think things are changing and hopefully things will continue to change within medicine. Medicine is a very particular world, a very deeply conservative world, and a world that is constantly teaching you that these problems are rooted in the body and the individual, and they're not social and systemic. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done to change that.
Fargo?
Hello, thank you, Élise, for your wonderful presentation. Very enlightening of the horrors that we've seen so far. I just wanted to comment on this idea of solidarity. It would be really great as a movement group, organization, or whatever to perhaps move past the rhetoric of we are in solidarity with XYZ. It's just these rhetorical, I keep referring to it as emoji activism of because I said I'm in solidarity with this individual or this tragedy or that, and the work is 50% done, and we got to move on from there. From my conversation with journalists in Gaza, journalists in Iran, I can tell you unequivocally, they do not give a fuck. They just don't care. They want a material. They want accountability. The other question I had for Élise is, it's become really difficult to donate and fundraise and to ensure direct fundraising to priority areas in Gaza. I do a lot with helping a group of journalists there, and there's also the GLIA organization. I think they're out in Ontario. I forget the doctor's name, Tarek Lubani or something. Are there any, in your view, what is the most sure, direct way to be able to send aid in any form to the healthcare professionals there? And also, what would your recommendations be for an organization like Capitalism Can't Be Fixed? What would be your suggestion of using the labor and insight for direct assistance to Gaza? Thanks.
Thanks for your question. Also, can I just say thanks for your work too? I'm pretty sure I saw a video and of Chrystia Freeland. Is that right? That I watched that maybe 50 times. It helped me. So just thank you. The two questions, really good questions and very difficult to answer, especially the first one. I totally agree. Like, solidarity is a practice. It's not a statement. It's not writing a statement. It's not putting out a press release. It's not even doing a fucking protest, to be honest. Like, I have a hard time going to protests anymore. It is materially building, I think, resistance. And I think what we can do, I mean, there are things that one can do in the world, and there are things that you can do within your own community. Right now, I'm kind of trying to focus on building strength in our community. And so I'm really excited about a group like this one, because I think that what we need is to build the infrastructure for our resistance and the infrastructure for our solidarity to be meaningful in the way that like socialist and communist movements had in the past, right? Like in the past, the Communist Party ran daycares, ran housing, ran schools, did all kinds of things, built a structure for people to live within, and had a culture. And we don't have a culture of socialism anymore. We don't have a culture that we can work within and live within that is meaningful to people's lives. So in terms of like international solidarity and how we can offer solidarity from here, I think one of the ways, not the only way, but one of the ways is to like build actual resistance within our own communities. And that means building the structure and infrastructure to resist the horror that is rising up around us every day. One of the ways I'm trying to do it here is like being on a small island in the North Atlantic, so totally disconnected from anyone else, is building and mapping our community of supporters, allies, people that, and places and businesses and organizations that we can count on. And we're doing that through the Apartheid Free Communities campaign, which is a pretty liberal campaign, but allows you to do the work of training others to organize, of building and like mapping your community, and like building within our community sort of the basis for a infrastructure of a socialist movement. So we're trying to do that on a really small scale here. I think there are lots of other things you can do to like enact solidarity. You can go to Gaza, you can go to Palestine, you can go to Iran, you can go to Lebanon. Maybe that's out of reach for some people. I think for the people who are here, we build here and we resist here and we militantly resist. We refuse that psychic space, that physical space. We don't let them be comfortable when they're out on their speaking tours laughing about how they're on the Epstein list. One. Two, I went with GLIA to Gaza. That's who I went with. GLIA is an amazing organization. It focuses its work around solidarity, not charity. So it's a medical solidarity organization. What that tangibly means is that when we go there, we don't go there as healthcare workers there to like hop in and do the surgeries and show everyone how it's done, but rather the focus of our work is on building sovereignty within the healthcare system in Gaza. So a lot of NGOs that are in Gaza right now are making an effort to take over the healthcare system, which is part of the colonial push in Gaza, right? Is to like take away all power from the state and put it in the hands of frankly unaccountable to the population NGOs. There was like a couple of months ago, we got a hold of a document that was basically the foundations of their pitch to get foreign doctors to come in working for foreign NGOs to take over the majority of MOH hospitals in Gaza. The MOH has been approached numerous times by various international NGOs with pitches to take over, like Al Shifa, for example, which is a huge colonial move and a huge removal of health sovereignty for Palestinians. So GLIA is not engaged in that. GLIA is engaged in building up the health sovereignty of Palestinians. One of the things GLIA does 3D printing within Gaza of medical devices. I have a little video in the slideshow I can play after if you want, just from an Al Jazeera story. While I was there, we launched our 3D printed external fixation devices for long bone fractures. I can show you the video afterwards if you're interested, but it's such an incredible way of building resiliency into the healthcare system so that Palestinians aren't relying on the shipment of international devices, that they can build and 3D print these devices themselves to do these surgeries. We've also built a wound care clinic that is staffed by Palestinians, and we're actively engaged in medical education because one of the big things that has happened is that the medical education system has been significantly disrupted. There's still med school going on, there's still residency, but people are exhausted and many senior physicians have been murdered. So our job has been to like take on that role of helping residents build up the skills to teach the med students so that they're building the capacities within the healthcare system in Gaza, not reliant on foreign teachers and also not reliant on foreign, especially Western information sources. So trying to get our information sources from the global South. So GLIA is a really good place to put your money, honestly. They do hard work. They do it on a shoestring. They are committed. You know, like when we go to Gaza with GLIA, when you go to Gaza, they tell you, the UN will say, we will extract you if you're at a hospital and they're evacuated, then the teams will come in and extract you. GLIA is a lights out organization. So if the hospital is evacuated, we stay until the last patient is evacuated and then we turn the lights out and then we leave. So GLIA lives by its principles. I've known Tariq Lubani for 20 years. We met when we were both in school 20 years ago. So it's a reliable organization. I also put money to the Samir project because I did see them operating on the ground when I was there. I think they're a reliable organization. There's a kitchen, Shabab Kitchen, that is also a great place to donate money to. They've opened a couple of projects. I can send around the link for that. You know, individual GoFundMes, which are problematic in lots of ways, but also kind of help. And then I just send money directly to individuals, you know, and it sucks because it's obviously so unfair that people with access to a phone, you know, who have the capacity maybe to speak English, although many of the people I send money to don't speak English, they just use translator app to communicate. I don't know. It's really hard and I've struggled with this myself, but I just send a lot of money directly too.
Élise, if I may ask a quick follow-up, I actually had the fortunate, at a demonstration you probably know him, Michel Bertelli.
No.
He actually works for GLIA as well. He's going to Gaza in October, I believe, somewhere at the end of the summer or fall. He's the one who suggested GLIA and brought it to my attention a few weeks ago. So are you able, is there a package or something? Because the website is pretty much, it just has that donate link, and it would be really great to be able to have like a kit that we can get, or like a little workshop of this is who GLIA is for people who can fundraise or advocate on their behalf locally. I'm sure there's going to be other people in this Zoom meeting who are willing to commit some labor hours into doing that. It would be really wonderful if you
Yeah,
could put us in touch.
I'll definitely put you in touch, 100%.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Thanks, Fargo. Yeah, it's a really important point. Jackie?
Hello, thank you. I'm so grateful for this space, and I'm so grateful for you, Elise, for coming and sharing your work, your writing, your heart. I found your writing, what you said, incredibly evocative and powerful and compelling. And I'm just wondering if you're publishing your work, if you're sharing your writing. I would love to read more of your writing and wherever it's appearing because it's incredibly moving, and share it with others. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't written anything yet. I struggle with the idea, you know, I sometimes wonder if I'm the person to write this stuff, if I don't want to like be making it, you know, I don't want to be like using a genocide to like make my little writing career. But I find it helpful to write these things down and to help me think through them. After I got back from Gaza, I went to work up in Nunavut for a while. And while I was up there, I was really struggling. And my friend asked me, why are you struggling so much in Iqaluit when you didn't have the same experience? You didn't struggle as much in Gaza. And it was a really nice opportunity for me to think about why. And you know, I thought a lot. If I can take a minute to talk a tiny bit about why. Um, you know, working in the North, it's really, really hard. The colonialism and the genocide isn't over. It's like very, very active right now. And it's just different. It's like a genocide, the way genocide has like destroyed many people's communities and capacities to persist in their culture is super devastating. A lot of lateral violence, a lot of sexual violence, a lot of I mean, I don't want to traumatize anyone, so I won't go into detail, but a lot of very, very disturbing things that I've had to witness there. And I think that I felt differently because in Gaza, I was standing alongside my colleagues who were healthcare workers. We were facing the bombing together. We were side by side at all times. I was living amongst the people. And I was also involved in solidarity work at home around resisting the genocide. And I am unfortunately not currently involved in any Indigenous solidarity work. When I go to Iqaluit, I am very separate from the Inuit and the community. I don't feel as though it is an act of solidarity. I would like it to be, but it's a job. And it makes it a lot harder to rationalize and like put those things together in my mind and come out mentally unscathed. So one of my goals is to get more involved in Indigenous solidarity work and being more focused on the resisting the genocide that's taking place here as well. And that's something I think about writing about, but I haven't yet. I'm thinking about it. Yeah. Years ago, I did write fiction, though, if you like fiction. Um, there is some of that available on the internet, but I haven't written anything yet. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about trying to think about what it means to organize and do health work and solidarity work against genocide from within a genocide and also looking out at another genocide. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Laurel?
Yeah, I think that you've already answered my question, but first of all, thank you for this. It was really very moving and gave me a lot to think about. But very early on in your presentation, you talked about the incursion of NGOs into the hospitals, and so I was glad when you explained what you meant by that. That's really disturbing to hear that NGOs are there trying to take over the work that the Palestinian doctors are already doing, and trying to to take over their hospitals. I was wondering if you would share with us any names of NGOs that are responsible for that.
I actually don't know I don't know which ones specifically. You know, the information that we received that was circulated, that was like the pitch for getting people to work, it didn't come with a name. I mean, I do know that MSF has been involved in seriously nefarious shit in Gaza. Like, um, there are many people within the organization that do good work and that operate with solidarity, but the organization itself is a colonial one, and it is operating with a colonial mentality in almost every space it enters into. So you could see that really clearly in Gaza when in January, the occupation said everyone who wants to operate in Gaza has to hand over a list of all their employees. And basically every organization declined to do that. That didn't include smaller organizations. So GLIO was never approached with this, but the bigger international NGOs were. And all of them refused to hand over their staff list, but MSF said, okay, we are going to hand over our staff list. And I don't know if all of you heard this story, but they presented it as like, well, we have all these employees. If we get kicked out, then these people will no longer have work, etc. There was such pushback to that they did end up going back on their plan
Promise.
to hand over the names. But that's just kind of one example, right? Like, I don't know what NGOs exactly. I know that there's a new one being formulated that has been and I don't know the name of it, but I don't know if it has a name yet, but there's a new kind of entity that's being formulated that has been really behind the push to turn the hospitals into international NGO-run health centers. And that new entity is kind of based on and founded by the same people who ran like, what was it called? Global Humanitarian Group, or the food distribution group. So this is all Board of Peace stuff. I don't have the exact names. I just know that we've gotten some information through our networks. Much of it has been disclosed anonymously. So I don't know who, and this is just also what I've been told from Ministry of Health people, that they receive kind of offers really regularly to have their hospitals taken over and run by various international NGOs. Especially, I mean, there's a lot of big ones there. The American one, the International Medical Corps, that's a big one. International Medical Corps and MSF are the two big ones that have pushed their way into the hospital system.
Wow.
Okay, thank you.
Interesting. Douglas, if you want to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hello, hi, and thank you so much for this presentation, and it helps us focus where we are. I'd like to return to Fargo's statement about solidarity. I don't think most people understand what that is. I'm going to give it an old school definition. I lived with Doukhobor, Mennonite, and Quaker, and it's pretty much, we spend money only on our needs. We spend time and money only on or towards our needs. And so I've lived with that vow for 47 years. But what it does is that when we distinguish between our needs and our wants, what that does is it gives us a definition to live in solidarity without going in 1,000 directions at the same time. So to be able to focus in our own lives with the money and time that we spend, that allows us to focus what is our goal, where are we going, and what are our priorities. So I just wanted to throw that out for people who are looking for a path of solidarity.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Hans?
Global Mercy is the world's largest hospital ship, stationed in Malta and operated by the Pope. The Chinese have the second largest hospital ship. What would you consider the feasibility of permanently anchoring such a hospital ship off Gaza, linked with a little bridge that the Biden administration tried to put up with the Marines. But the campaign to put pressure, to put their money where their mouths is, especially the American Pope. What would you consider the value of such a facility in the immediate vicinity of Gaza?
It's an interesting idea. I mean, the first obstacle obviously would be getting in the vicinity of Gaza because, as we've seen with the various flotillas that have gone, they can't get anywhere near, and they basically get to Greece and then get kidnapped now. I guess the other thing too is like that sounds like an interesting initiative and beautiful and important, but more I think the focus should be on allowing Palestinians to decide their future and for them to build and define and run their own healthcare system. So if it was something that was under the control of the Palestinians, if the Palestinians wanted that, if they were the ones running it and controlling it, maybe that's a brilliant idea. That whatever they called it, aid pier, no longer exists. We rode past it all the time because we would sometimes take the beach road to go south from Gaza City. And now that whole area is a place where people burn plastic to turn it into a type of fuel that can be used to run cars and cooking oil and stuff like that. Gas for a fire, not cooking with. And so it's an incredibly, incredibly toxic site now, which is kind of, I think, the perfect culmination to that monstrosity to begin with. So yeah, I didn't know about those hospital ships. That's super interesting. Again, I think like if anything that is done with Palestinians at the center of the decision making and the functioning, if that's what the Palestinians want, then I'm for it.
Yeah. Catherine? Catherine Hughes, if you wanted to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Oops. Yeah. Hi. Yeah, sorry about that. I just wanted to mention that there's a project that was done at Dalhousie University. And it's a solar powered mini desalination device that floats on the water and is made out of a used tire and a piece of plastic over the top and a special coating, and it can desalinate a significant amount of water. I mean, I think maybe like a family's amount in a day. It's not a lot, but I've been thinking that it might be something that could be very useful in Gaza at this time, because it might be something that would require very little imported materials. And I would be willing to try to get in touch with the people who have made this thing if I knew who to connect them with in Gaza.
That's super interesting, and I think definitely would be really useful. Any kind of devices that repurpose items that you already have available, or that are fairly easy to obtain through the occupations like sieve are really helpful. So if it's something like made from a tire with simple ingredients, especially, or parts, especially ones that can be obtained there or easily brought in, would be amazing. Yeah, I can, if you want to get in touch with me, I can put my email in the chat if anybody wants to ask anything else or say anything else, or and then we can try to figure out who to connect you to. That'd be great.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great.
Elizabeth, if you want to unmute yourself.
There we go. Hi, where in Newfoundland do you live?
I'm in St. John's.
Oh, and I'm at the tip. I'm in St. Anthony,
Oh,
18
amazing.
hours away. We're so close.
So close.
And once a month, I have to go to Corner Brook for my eyes. So maybe at some point, we could meet, or I
Yes.
could make an effort to come down to you because I know you're busy. When I heard, it was a while ago, all these big name NGOs were going to go in. Certain ones were picked by Israel, this board of peace. We can see how well that's running. And I thought that is the word, that is totally colonialism or whatever you want to call it. You can spin it as much because they had Palestine before all this, in spite of all this, was always under fire, but they created all kinds of ways of maneuvering around all their terrible violence for decades. This is not a new thing for them. And even now, in spite of all that's happened, they have had, I mean, you're right. You can't even hardly talk about it because, it's you can't believe that people can be so mean or so terrible. There isn't words for it. But I think it should be picked the it shouldn't be if you pick a small organization and their only focus, right, is really on whether they have more than one group or two group, but they're able to, like, for example, I work with an organization, I met them in Vancouver, called Mobilization Against War and Occupation. That is a stellar organization. These people have been doing it since they were teenagers. And they are married, some of them are not. And this is their passion to do it for not just Palestine. They always do Palestine since it started. And they do as much as they can. And I'm not saying, but and there's Canada Peace and Justice Network. That's another one, has over 40 to 50 NGOs in Canada right now. I could be off the beat, but there are those groups that have really to have peace. And actually, that's the most important thing for Palestinians, is to have peace. Because no matter what you bring in, the Zionists or whatever you want to call those guys in Israel, they are not going to let it happen. Even as you speak, the Canadian people from politicians went there and we saw how they were treated. And it was a big uproar. And I thought, well, la-di-da, I guess so. It was okay if they did it to somebody. So anyway, I think it's, and are you a doctor or are you a nurse?
I'm a doctor, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was just wondering if this was just doctors and that. Oh, thank you very much. I wanted to go. I'm not a doctor. I'm not at those places, but then the cost to go in all the other ones was too high. And I just said, no, I got to do something different. And I walk with the flag when the weather's good up here, and I walk with the Palestinian flag and reminding people about, among other things, what's important in life. And people still are asking me, what's the flag? I have Yemen and I have Palestine together on a flag walking. And they say, well, what is that? And here we go. Anyway, thank you, my daughter. You
Yeah,
are
no.
something else. And I'm not from Newfoundland. I'm from BC originally. Yeah. And I
It's
love
nice. It's nice that, and I do think those like small acts of just like making Palestine always present, even in the smallest, most remote communities, is important. Like
Yeah.
even just not letting people forget that this exists is important.
Yeah, because you can spend so much energy going to talking to the town councils and, doing petitions, and you can go on. And then it's me, myself, and I here. Nobody else gives a hoot. Some people are starting to talk to me about it, and I've been doing it since the beginning of the war.
Thanks,
But
Elizabeth. I think we're going to have to jump to the next
okay,
question here. Thank you so
yeah, I'm
much,
sorry,
though.
I talked too much.
It's all good. Yusra?
Hi. So thank you, Doctor, for the presentation and for sharing your experiences. I think, all right, maybe we can pass me. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. John?
Sure. Sounds like mom duties in your intervene. First off, solidarity is a practice, not a statement. I'm going to use that, and I'm going to attribute that to you, if I may. I thought that's just a That may be a new tagline. But some of the things you said resonated for me. My for income work is mainly in the health sector, mainly in IT. I do a lot of data protection and privacy stuff. Um, but the impression I get is that the role of physicians who ascend, so shall we say, to bureaucratic positions in the medical associations or the ministries of health, um, their role is to discipline the profession to make sure that it serves the interests of capital. I remember there was a fellow named a doctor in Toronto, Paul Wong, I want to say 15 years ago, who, because of the vagaries of the welfare and Ontario disabilities, you could get more money if you had a medical condition. So he described poverty as a medical condition so that they could get the increased benefits. And he was threatened from losing his license for that.
I think he did lose his license for a little while. I think he had it
Yeah.
suspended. Yeah, I remember that.
I think that's the perfect example. I wonder if you agree that that's sort of the role of those the medical professionals in those organizations, is to discipline the profession to bend it to the will of capital, and how, because I think that's true in a lot of professions, how you organize in solidarity against that, and how can an organization like Capitalism Can't Be Fixed or other movements work in solidarity to help with that?
You know, I mean, medicine has long been very, very conservative and very tied to capitalism. I mean, even in this country, right? Like in an attempt to bring in a variant of socialized medicine, it was the doctors who went on strike to resist it. So doctors are not a revolutionary bunch here in this time at present. But if you look to like the radicals, like Ernesto Che Guevara was a doctor, and he wrote a book called On Revolutionary Medicine. And there are people who have, or he wrote a piece called On Revolutionary Medicine, and he understood the need to like despecialize and utilize medicine to serve the people. So when I went into medicine, which was late in life, after doing many other things, it was a late in life decision. My reason for going into medicine was to serve the people, not to become a famous surgeon or to like make a lot of money or whatever. I think that we just need to we need to unearth those histories of medicine as a revolutionary act and as a way of serving the aims of revolutionary struggle. That it is not about building even like a public health infrastructures or things like that. It is about serving the aims of revolution and by building the health of the people to resist and to struggle and to build. So I think one way to do that might be to do educationals sometimes that might focus on, or readings that might help us understand medicine's revolutionary potential, I guess, would be one way.
More Norman Bethune and less Tommy Douglas.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, thank you. Yusra, are you able to ask your question now?
Yeah, can we try this again? Sorry about that. Yeah, a question a little bit closer to home. I'll be quick. So thank you, doctor, for sharing. And so I'm a healthcare provider too. I'm a physician assistant. My husband's a nurse. So we work in the Toronto area. So we definitely feel that powerful Zionist influence in the medicine field. And what I kind of struggle with is like compartmentalizing. And I guess it's a general thing that I'm sure everybody struggles with. But I've had patients who are like, ex-IDF. I've had patients who've openly told me, well, like Canada's healthcare sucks. Like, I wish I could go back to Israel, and like the healthcare there is so great and technology is so advanced. And it's just, you have to, like in the provider patient relationship, you have to be part, like, apolitical because of the power dynamic, but it's such a struggle. And as I'm sure you know, and you've talked about, it's such a censored environment, like people getting dinged for like wearing the pin, wearing the flag, wearing a watermelon, like Dr. Gee recently. So I don't know if you have any advice, or just kind of, I guess, wanted to share that experience, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I know that feeling. But I mean, and I guess the thing I would say about it is like it feels really hard, the compartmentalizing. But it is something I have to do in lots of settings in medicine because there are times when I've like ripped open someone's shirt to put the pads on them and there's a huge like swastika tattoo. I have had to treat people who have harmed children in incredibly terrible ways. I have had to separate like what I'm doing from that person many, many times. It's hard. I just continue to do it. And in this particular case, I think that you need to seek out others who share your politics and your position and your and just like be aligned with them and know that they exist. So like I know that we can get dinged for wearing keffiyeh to work, but I don't know if I think I packed it away. I have a very small little pin on my shirt that is the colors of a watermelon with the little healthcare symbol in it. It's just an identifier. You just wear a little thing that identifies you to others so they know that you trust them and they trust you. And to me, that's really helped. I have a little bracelet that I wear that says Palestine that someone gave me a few years ago. And I wear it, and patients see it. And the number of times that I've had patients say, thank you, or like are happy about me wearing that, it greatly outnumbers the complaints that I've gotten for things like that. So I think I totally feel you that like that splitting that you have to do with dealing with patients is super hard. And I don't know, we are kind of like Academy Award winning actors when it comes to dealing. I can't imagine someone talking about their time in the IDF and how I would deal with that. But I think it's just something that like the job requires of us in many, many situations. But then finding your people also within healthcare is super important. There is an organization called Health Workers Alliance for Palestine. Its membership has been closed for a while now, but it's opening up again soon. So if that's something that would interest you, just get in touch. I put my email in the chat and I can connect you.
Thank you. So yeah,
Perfect. Thank you.
we'll just do one last question. Maybe Barry, did you want to ask because you haven't asked one yet?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. I know time is short. This has been a very moving episode in the weekly webinars, and I hope they'll continue. And with solidarity and support and involvement of wonderful people like Élise, that will in fact be possible and will happen on an ongoing basis. Élise, that presentation was stunningly eloquent and moving. It should be published. You were wondering, what are you going to publish? I mean, how about that? Although it'll be available as well on YouTube, I understand. But it's good to get it in written form to people who don't like to look for things on the websites. Right now, and you were witness to it, the orientation or the drive of imperialism and its local agents is towards a combination of expulsion and extermination. And I include not only with Gaza, the West Bank and South Lebanon and more. Which do you think is gaining the upper hand, expulsion or extermination? Or are they just two evils that are in a deadlocked and punishingly proceeding at a rapid pace together? I'd like your insight on that. Expulsion or extermination?
I think it probably differs depending on where you are. So clearly, South Lebanon expulsion is the one that is the key tactic. Like, I mean, what is Israel like threatening to bomb suburbs of Beirut, suburbs, quote unquote, now, and has taken a huge component of the south of Lebanon. The yellow line, I'm sure people have heard of it, the sort of area that the occupation has seized within Gaza has expanded to 70%. So Gazans are living within 30%. But people can't be expelled from Gaza because the occupation won't let them. They have this fucking sick, sadistic fixation on slow extermination. And I would say that extermination is their project in Gaza right now. And that extermination is not necessarily one of bombs dropping from the sky quite so much anymore, although it's clearly happening all the time. But if you go to the markets in Gaza, you know what is available in the markets is Bounty bars, potato chips, Biscoff, no peanut butter, but Biscoff butter, like some sugary confection. It's just candy and snack food and junk food and soda pop. And then no eggs, minimal amount of meat, some vegetables, all very expensive. I have a picture somewhere in the presentation that I didn't include in the talk part, but um, of the some of the items that I bought. I bought a thing of dish soap, 2 rags, an orange, a Fanta, an apple, and one other thing, and it cost me $85. So like the cost of food and other things is so exorbitantly expensive, and it's gotten so much more expensive since the US American war on Iran, just because that's led to further closures and less eyes on Gaza, so more and more restrictions at the border. So there have been days where a 0 aid trucks enter into Gaza in the last 12 weeks. So yeah, I would say the project of extermination that the occupation is taking on in that part of the world is its main project. Whether or not it's winning, I do not think it is. I mean, even if you just like, I know you can't sugarcoat it. You can't be like, people still find joy, but they do. I mean, people do still find joy, you know, people still find ways to love each other and have fun and live life, even if it's a variation that would be unrecognizable to them 3 years ago. So the occupation can try to expel and exterminate, and they will lose. The day will come that they will lose. That's what I believe.
Thank you so much, Élise. This, yeah, super powerful. Really, really appreciate you coming on and talking to us and sharing all the videos as well is actually very powerful to watch while you're speaking. Yeah, thank you so much. Just a couple announcements that next week we're going to have the Lac-Yip Firekeepers group come to speak to us. So that's Shaylin is going to speak to us. It's a land defense group in BC against a pipeline that's being developed, and they're a youth group actually that came together. So we're just giving them a platform to speak about their struggles, about their organization, how we can help them if at all. So really looking forward to that. And yeah, we have some other things coming up as well, like anti-NATO organizing as the NATO conference comes up in July in Turkey. So watch out for that as well. And then hopefully we're going to get some regional chapters going very quickly. I know that Vancouver folks met yesterday as well. So we'll start those up as this new organization gets going across the country. Yeah, thanks everybody for attending this week once again. And thank you so much to Élise. And I hope that we can work together going forward as well.
Me too. Yeah, I would really love to work together. And thank you, everyone, for all your brilliant questions and for listening and letting me think about this stuff again.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks,
And be in
everybody.
touch. Be in touch if anyone has other questions or needs to. Yeah.
All right.
Let's
Thank
work.
you.
Let's work together.
Yes, definitely.